Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this very auspicious occasion. We're going to begin the really fun part where everyone gets to offer remarks about Maurice to Maurice. And to kick us off, we have Senior Vice Provost Soulaymane Kachani, who's going to start the ball rolling.
I just want to make eye contact with Maurice. I cannot see him. Well, thank you all for coming to this, wonderful event for a very special person. We're all gathered to celebrate our wonderful friend and colleague, Maurice. I had the privilege of first meeting Maurice when I joined Columbia as a junior faculty. He came to my department early days of CCNMTL to give a presentation about the innovation of CCNMTL. And 10 years ago, I had the privilege of sitting with him as we were working on the Provost Faculty Advisory Committee on Online Learning. And quickly, we started working on this wonderful project that is the Center for Teaching and Learning. We have gone through a lot, Maurice and I. And I've learned tremendously from him, as I'm sure many of you here in the room. Very special person, somebody who really cares deeply about the institution, about doing what is right. And, I've said this to Maurice many times. I and the university are immensely grateful to him for making that transition from CCNMTL to the CTL possible. Without his leadership, I'm going to steal some words, silent leadership, calm leadership, we would not have been able to take a wonderful group that existed and that was, high quality group with many alumni in the room today and create something fantastic that we are all proud of, that is now an essential service of the university, which is the Center for Teaching and Learning. Maurice is a visionary. He turned a lot of things that he touched to gold, and as we recently launched the Columbia Plus platform, we showcased a lot of the work that he led within the CTL on all the MOOC projects we worked on over the past decade. I had a conversation with Maurice a few weeks ago when he was trying to find a way of remaining involved with the CTL post-retirement and having access to our systems in case we run into trouble. And I very much support CUIT giving him as much access as he wants for as long as he wants. But Maurice, you're a cherished colleague, a wonderful friend, a wonderful mentor for a lot of people in this room. You'll always be in our hearts, and we wish you the very best in this this next journey, and we really hope that you will remain connected with all of us. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Catherine Ross, the current Executive Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning. So I came here 6 years ago, and I have been incredibly privileged to work with Maurice since my arrival. For those of you who have known Maurice for decades longer than I have, I'm sure that these words will sound familiar and appropriate. I'm going to read them. Maurice is generous. He's moving because he doesn't want to be embarrassed. Maurice is generous, thoughtful, even-keeled, fun, helpful, kind, resourceful, steadfast, loyal, and wise. I could go on, but I think I've made him uncomfortable enough for now, and you get the idea. He has helped lead and shape the CTL, and before that, CCNMTL, and into an incredible organization, as Soulaymane referenced today. And he has helped me grow as a leader by his example. He has also become a friend, a cherished colleague, and someone to whom it is extraordinarily difficult to say goodbye. We wish you the very best in your journey, Maurice, along with a little bit of rest and maybe a lot of fun.
All right, okay. Now, what is it about CUIT providing route access to retirees? I think we need to talk about this. Joel, Alan, why? What about me, huh? Chopped liver? Okay, I bring props. I guess I'm the designated old-timer. Those of you who have looked at the screen, if you look at it, you'll see a young gentleman floating horizontally over a lawn for an impossibly long time and then landing and then getting back up and not having every bone broken in his body. That would be Maurice. And there's a reason why the dedication materials for the computer center are basically Frisbees, not just any standard Frisbee, but certified ultimate Frisbee units. So Maurice, I have your ultimate Frisbees here. I'm Rob Cartolano. I am in the libraries as Associate VP for Tech and Preservation, but I started out as a part-timer working in the computer labs in 1984. I was 5 years old. I've been fortunate enough to know Maurice for almost my entire time at Columbia, going back to my undergraduate years in engineering in the early 1980s, when I got a part-time job at CUCCA, the Columbia University Center for Computing Activities. Let's hear it for CUCCA. Established in 1963. It would be actually 6 decades this year that we've had a formal computer center, or what is now the descendants of computing at Columbia. It has taken on many names and acronyms: UCCA, CUCCA, AcIS, AIS, CUIT, CCNMTL, CTL. But there has always been one Maurice. I think you'd all agree. Maurice, you have been an amazing leader of computing at Columbia. First, you were an excellent leader in academic technologies. Computing, networking, software, just getting this stuff to work. Desktop publishing, web publishing. From the $6 million IBM Aurora grant to Columbia's first electronic classrooms. You combined your consultative approach with faculty, students, and staff, your technical expertise, Columbia engineering, what can we say? And your keen eye for design to deliver advanced technology to our campus in a way that supported widespread adoption and advanced Columbia's mission, and did it with style. Second, you have been a leader in teaching and learning. As was mentioned earlier, helping to create originally, with Frank Moretti, establishing the Center for New Media Teaching and Learning, now CTL, to enhance teaching and learning through the purposeful use of technology. I went back to find that original statement. And truly, that is what CTL and CCNMTL embodied, and embody today. I truly valued our partnership in delivering courseworks for Columbia. It was through your strong leadership and oversight that helped put over 2,000 courses and 20,000 students and their faculty onto courseworks in less than 12 months. That was an amazing accomplishment, and we have Maurice and his team to thank for it. So. Now, we can talk about all the things that Maurice has accomplished, but most importantly, Maurice, you have been an amazing leader in your work to build great teams. I consider myself a very fortunate person who worked for Maurice for about 8 or 9 years. You have been a technology captain that assembled programmers, designers, education experts, and many more, including many of you around this room, together, and then gave them vision, direction, a sense of mission and purpose, and then achieving results that not only represented the best of Columbia, but also served as national models for what is possible in applying technology in higher education. So, Maurice, congratulations. I don't have my glass, but I raise a virtual glass to you in a virtual world, to your 4 decades of service in advancing academic technology at Columbia, and wish you the very best as you move on. Thank you for being our tech captain. Now I'm keeping the frisbees, okay?
Amanda's next. Oh, I thought Mark was next. Go ahead, Mark. Whatever.
I'm here, I might as well go. Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Phillipson. I am a current colleague of Maurice. I insist on this for at least a day or 2 more at CTL. It's certainly the end of an era. For me, that era stretches back to 2005. For others in this room, even longer. I met Maurice in 2005, and frankly, Maurice, I was a little scared of you when I met you. I actually didn't arrive here as an employee. I was a faculty member at a liberal arts college and interested in ed tech, so I came to Columbia on a fellowship to see what was possible at CCNMTL, and what I saw here was amazing. Part of the fellowship was, the responsibilities of this was to blog my discoveries, and there was so much to blog about. I was seeing simulations, like one where students investigate and measure a development site full of toxic secrets. I was seeing case studies, like one where students wrestled with editorial decisions and composed the front page of the Washington Post, or multimedia study environments that swelled a full text, like the autobiography of Malcolm X, into an amazing archive of news footage, FBI files, and seminar lectures. I was seeing collective authoring and mapping projects. I was seeing distance learning projects and image and video annotation projects. I even saw a collateral consequence calculator for law students. Do you remember this? Students who were studying the interplay of housing and immigration law and generating probabilities. I think that was AI. On and on. And let's remember, this was before Google Docs, right? YouTube was just barely born. Facebook was still cool. The iPhone was several years away. Anyway, on my 3rd or 4th day here, I was staying late trying to get some of this down in writing, and I was the last person to leave the Lewiston office, gave me a key, and told me to lock up. And that's the night I met Maurice. I hadn't met him yet, and he dropped by Lewiston with some equipment or something, and was downright startled to see a stranger alone in the office, blogging away to the public about all these projects. He did not seem pleased. And then finally, when I did have a chance to interview him to understand more about the group, he asked me rather pointedly, I thought, "Why are you here?" He probably suspected that I was angling for a job. To be fair, in an organization that attracted so many people with so many different talents and agendas, you never knew who would be passing through or why. Salman Rushdie, Lou Reed, Bruno Latour, Dionne Warwick, Goldie Hawn, not to mention all the faculty. Why are you here was always a fair question. Anyway, I quickly learned that none of what I was seeing would have been possible without Maurice, without his caution, his protection, his long perspective. The amazing work that I saw and eventually jumped into depended on the processes he put into place, the tools he developed to track projects and develop them, and document and showcase those projects. Yes, the wiki. It depended on a service ethos. Thank you. Yeah, a little love for the wiki. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It depended on a service ethos that he promoted to cultivate a staff that could parlay any faculty demand, however basic or outrageous, into a positive outcome and a sense of partnership. And it depended on trust and loyalty among the staff, who always knew that Maurice had their back, would jump in with help no matter what, and who knew him to be an untiring champion of team spirit, Friday beers, and dad jokes. I learned that all the innovation flying around wouldn't exist or last or mean anything without maintenance, which is another word for care, which is what Maurice always did. He cared. And when CCNMTL was reorganized into CTL, I learned even more from Maurice. I saw his grace and patience as we experienced leadership changes and reorganizations. I saw his determination to carry organizational strengths and capacities that had been developed over 15 years into a newly defined and reborn CTL. And I saw his enthusiastic embrace over the years of new staff, who might have gone through a process similar to mine of being a little intimidated by Maurice at first, and then growing into great gratitude for him. Thank you, Maurice, for all the wise counsel all these years, for your steady support of all that we've been able to do, and now for one final lesson, how to walk away from everything you've built and embrace the next stage in life. Cheers.
I don't know about you, but everyone at my table agrees I should have gone before Marc. Because that was excellent and a true testament to Maurice. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda. I'm the Senior Director of Faculty Programs at the CTL and honored current colleague of Maurice Matiz. I am not at all surprised to see so many people who have worked with Maurice over so many years turn out today. It is a testament to his leadership, and Maurice's leadership has been extremely influential to me, and so I thought I would make the toast today an homage to your, what I have considered quiet or silent leadership over the years. For those of us who are current CTL employees, because I'm just barely have been here 7 years, so mere infancy compared to some of you. But for those of us who are current members of the CTL, Maurice is our common denominator. He is the only colleague who has been our colleague since our very first day. And that is true for all of us. And so it feels like the ending of an era with Maurice leaving. But you leave a strong legacy that we will continue. The wiki is in here, don't worry. There is a strong legacy, and we've heard others say this, but I have to say it again too, of great heart in everything that he does. He cares deeply about his work, and he cares deeply about his colleagues. And you see that in any number of things, mostly through his attention to detail. Maurice is, and I mean this in all generosity to my other colleagues, but Maurice is the only person who reads every single thing I send him, from the first to the last page. And it might take him an additional couple of weeks, but he will follow up and he will share his thoughts. And I have always appreciated that because he cares about the people he works with and wants to give them his full attention. And time as our most valuable resource, that means a lot. And it is something I have tried to emulate in my own work. Also, a lot of fun in his leadership. In my first week, like Marc, I was working late, trying to understand this new place that I worked, and had my door sort of shut. And I heard Maurice, and I think Nick B., and it sounded like bottles opening. To which point I peeked my head out, and they were like, "It's after 5, do you want a beer?" Sure thing. And then that's before I knew that there was rum upstairs. Yeah. So there was always a sense of wanting to get to know it. And it's important to me to say that Maurice was not my direct supervisor. We didn't have a direct line, but we have ended up working together really closely. And despite that not being our direct relationship, it never stopped him from checking in on me. And that is something else I want to make sure that gets honored here is that even if Maurice is not always the loudest person in the room, though you certainly can be, well done, from one loud person to another, he's always paying attention and always follows up and always checks in on people to make sure that they're okay. And in a large organization, and especially through times of change, that is extraordinarily important. And it is those daily moments that I think we will all miss the most, of knowing that you are there and knowing that you share a long institutional memory and history with us. And so I commit to continuing your legacy of great documentation, including the wiki. Everyone who worked with Maurice, you can sort of tell because they have a style of writing everything down and documenting it to the hilt. And that will continue, I am sure. And so thank you so much for your unwavering attention and your quiet, measured, and intentional leadership. We are all better because of you, and we will continue to honor what you have helped build. So I don't have a glass either, but please do raise a glass to our colleague, Maurice Matiz.
I'm Stephanie Ogden, and I've worked for Maurice probably the longest out of anyone who is currently employed under the CTL. Maurice, a couple of weeks ago, you handed me the letter where I accepted and thanked you for hiring me as CCNMTL's first video specialist. You did. And that letter is dated December 28th, 1999. That's 23 years ago, and here we are today, right? I'd like to take you back to one stop along this journey. In 2009, the CCNMTL, now CTL, and we and many people here in this room, and Frank Moretti and you, we received an award. And the award was for innovative use of archives, and it was for the MAP project, Mapping the African American Past, and it was held at the Metropolitan Museum. Now, recently we interviewed you, and you recalled a moment. It was the first moment when you realized that Frank's struggle with cancer was far worse than you had thought. We were at the Metropolitan Museum, and you got a call. And Frank called you from the car, and he said, I'm not going to be able to make it to receive the award because I can't walk from where I've finally found parking to the entrance of the museum. So it's no surprise that you, in your quiet way, jumped into action. You called your wife, Laura, who's here today, with their children and cousin. And you asked her to meet you in front of the museum. Then you called Frank. You told him to drive to the entrance. You and Laura met him. Laura took over the driver's seat, and you walked with Frank into the event. And Frank walked to the front of the room and spoke at the podium. Now, I was at the event too. As many of you who are here today were also at the event, and we actually have pictures to reflect that. And I was not aware at all that you had gone to this length to make sure that Frank was there to participate in our collective recognition of our center, yours, Frank Moretti's center, and our collective work and achievements. Now, typically, the collective success of an organization far outweighs any one individual's achievements. But today, you are the exception. Thank you. Thank you. I've learned so much under your mentorship and guidance and, dare I say, friendship. no doubt you will continue to have profound impact even in retirement. So yeah, please, if you haven't signed the book, if you haven't seen the photos, there are a lot of them are from that event, and I'm going to be handing the mic off to Michelle.
I'm going to sit while I speak because I wrote some notes and I can't. It'll be weird to hold this iPad. And I need the iPad because I'm blind. Hello, Maurice. This is quite emotional. I met Maurice first in 2001 when I was a graduate student at Teachers College, and I begged Frank Moretti for a job as a new media associate at the medical center. And we met very briefly because I would be sent on random errands to Morningside. And I knew he was the boss there, but we've never really talked. So, but I really got to know him when I returned as a full-time employee in 2004. So now, all those years later, we're at the point, Maurice, where you're ready to say goodbye to all of this and all of us, and hopefully kick back and enjoy your retirement. But I couldn't let this moment pass without expressing my deep admiration and gratitude for everything you've done for us at CCNMTL and the CTL, and for me personally. I've learned so much from you. You've been an incredible boss, mentor, and probably most importantly, a true friend. Your retirement, as many people have said so far, marks the end of an era. And the impact you've had on our lives will endure for years to come. My first impressions of you when I started with CCNMTL in 2004 were that you're a director who cares a lot about process and order more than anything else. And at first, I have to admit, I didn't fully appreciate the importance of it all. And frankly, you were a little bit intimidating. Well, a lot intimidating. But I am so grateful now for everything that you've taught us, everything that I've learned from you. Your unwavering commitment to process showed us that success is about careful planning, attention to detail, and that documentation is one of the best communications tools a team has at its disposal. I can't express how much I think about these things every single day now that I'm building my own team at another organization. You've also taught us that it's not enough to provide excellent service and have great interactions with our clients. We should also make an effort to document who we serve and in what ways, and to use that data to help us decide what to do next. And in the many years I've been at the university, I've learned that not every organization works in that way, and that we were remarkably well run by you. I also think about the efforts put into developing a systematic way of collecting customer, CRM data and managing project processes. Others have talked about, the great technologists you are. Does anyone remember the PMT? I don't know if anyone told you, Maurice, but we hated that tool, right? But today, I think about how innovative it was, how ahead of its time. And we are all now paying multi-billion-dollar companies to do that same work in a tool that someone else has built. You were always ahead of the game, pushing us to develop cutting-edge tech tools that were way ahead of their time. But you know what, Maurice? As much as you were wired to care about process and and order, you are equally wired to care about people genuinely. My only regret is that it took me a while to realize that. I blame that on the fact that, you know, we were physically distant. I was at the medical center, and the fact that it was a few years before I got to work closely with you on a project. But you are loyal. You are always the only person in the organization who can keep a secret. And it always tickled me how annoyed you were when you found out that we already knew something before we should. And I also can't tell you how much I appreciate that you always took the time to listen, to understand, to support us. Some of us have cried in your office. Well, I cried in your office. Your compassion, empathy, problem-solving skills have helped me through some difficult personal and professional situations. I know we must have disagreed, but as I was preparing this, I could not remember the details of any. And that says a lot because I can hold a grudge. So, you know, the positive interactions we've had over the years outweigh any disagreement that we've had all this time. I was also drunk in your apartment. We don't talk about that, but I was there with colleagues after a Christmas party. I have so many great memories of the work that we've done, but as a team, we also socialized a lot. And whether you planned those or not, you encouraged it. And I believe that's why so many of us are lifelong friends, because you really believed it was important for a team to have that kind of social time outside of work to get to know each other, and it made the work so much better. So I've been talking for a really long time. I just want to end by saying that as you enter this new phase of your life, I want you to know that your impact will never fade away. The foundations you've laid, the innovative spirit you've instilled, the care you've shown will continue to guide us, and your legacy will live on through each and every one of us. Congratulations. You've earned this. I could not be happier for you. And may your days be filled with joy, relaxation, and satisfaction of knowing that you've made a lasting difference in all our lives.
Okay, so we're actually going to open up an open mic to anybody else who wants to speak about Maurice. We have about 10-15 minutes, so I would just ask that people keep it to just a couple minutes each. And I'm going to try to facilitate this. So if you want to speak, just try to catch my eye, and I'll sort of put you on the list. So it's an open mic if anybody wants to go. Go ahead, Ellen.
Everyone at my table just said, "Oh, Ellen." I worked with Maurice in, I don't know, I think it was 2013 to 2016. I left to go back to the K-12 education, and Maurice was like, "Why are you doing that?" Because you hated it. And I was like, well, but I learned a tremendous amount. And now I'm as an administrator, and I'm implementing all these new systems, and I'm like, document, document, document. But I will tell you what he said to me when he interviewed me. He's like, I had to interview you. You're so enthusiastic, but you have too many exclamation points in your portfolio. And I think you should change this word to that. And you know what? This sentence would be so much better than what you have there, because that's Maurice. And it's not that he expected perfection from us, he expected growth. And yes, Maurice would be like, when I was having a bad day, and we've all been there, we'd be up on that floor, and he'd be like, here's $20, someone go get Ellen a bag of Doritos. Or like when someone would get sick, we would all go out and get drinks and take pictures and be like, we miss you. My children were deeply affected by Maurice. So my daughter was 8 when he met her. She's 18, turning 19 now. And when I told her where I was coming, she said, tell Maurice the best thing he ever did was to teach me about the library. I'm a librarian. Apparently, Maurice made a bigger impact, and she got a full ride to LSU. Thank you, Maurice. And Eddie was like, tell Maurice I still want to go in the tunnels. What did you say to them? Thank you, Maurice. You're the best.
Hey, friends. I'm Ted Bongiovanni. I had the pleasure of working with Maurice and this crew, the dream team, this whole dream team. This is so special, people. It is just so great to be here with you and honoring you, Maurice. It's so exceptional. I had lunch with a now old colleague. I have a new job. I'm the executive director of this org in downtown. And I'm like, finally, I have the gig that I was inspired by you and Frank to be able to step up and do. And I think of you guys every day, and CCNMTL is the example, the story that I talk about creating the culture of use. But really valuing people first, getting to know people, like so many basic, just really good things that you guys did. And I don't know that I didn't appreciate it, I think all of it when I was there, but God, every day, there's not a day that passes that I don't reflect on how exceptional it was and how exceptional you are. So I just want to say thank you for the confidence that you had in me and all of us, and for the gifts, like the room full of gifts that you've given us. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gerard Zoehfeld. I started at CCNMTL in January of 2000. I was right after Stephanie got hired. She was probably, I guess I was her first hire. But I was there for 13, 14 years, and the hardest thing, and a lot of you will probably agree with me, was to leave. And I didn't want to leave. I had gotten 2 master's degrees while I was here, and got married while I was here, and a whole bunch of things happened. And finally he's like, you have no more, I don't know what else I can do for you and give for you. You need to go. And it took me almost a year to do that. And I can't thank you enough to give me that strength, because I probably'd still be here.
Maurice. I haven't been at the CTL for a while now, but I started at CCNMTL in 2012. I was hired for the first experiment with JTS. And I remember in my interview, Maurice was very stoic, very, level-headed. And of course, Frank was telling me I got the job. And Maurice was like, nah, well, maybe. But like probably many other people here, I now run my own center, and I really credit you for that inspiration, for the model, for really spoiling me in terms of what an amazing workplace really could be like, and seeing the dysfunction that's around me in the other offices where I work. It really highlights how incredible you held the space for all of us and kept things together and protected us. There's a lot of politics that goes on in universities, and we didn't have to worry about that because we had you. And I'll always remember that. Thank you.
Check. Is it on? Maurice, my name is Jeff Eldredge. I work at CUIT. Yeah, thank you. I'm of similar, to some degree, lesser or more vintage as some of the old timers in the room are. When I came here in 1986, I was 25 years old. You can do the math. I'm now 43. And Maurice was the guy who met me for my interview, and he was my shepherd and my mentor for many months and years. But things whooshed by. I should also add that at that time, anybody who worked for CUCCA or AcIS generally was from Columbia. And I was from Cornell, which meant I was an alien entity. I get no end of ribbing from Alan Crosswell for being a cow tipper. But you know, they really made me feel at home, and I loved everybody that I met there. But things went by so quickly, and Maurice was gone. You know, he'd gone off to his new opportunity at CCNMTL, which we embraced because we knew there was a fantastic opportunity for him. We would miss him, but we were happy that he was still on the campus, and I'm happy that he was still on the campus. We don't see each other that often, but I consider him a close friend of mine, as well as really enjoying knowing his family, his wife, his children, my wife, knowing them as well. And I wish him all the best. And maybe we'll be able to get together a little bit more in the future. I hope so. I love you.
Anybody want to speak over here? Anybody? We just have time for a couple more.
One, two. Okay. My name is Marc Raymond, if you don't know me. And Maurice, 22 years ago, I first met you in this building, exactly. It was one of those marathon CTL interviews where you run the gauntlet and you speak to like 8, 9 people in one day. And Maurice's job was to take me out to lunch. And he brought me here to the faculty house, and we're having lunch, and again, just kind of a little intimidated because I was being grilled. It was like you're a cop. But I remember but I still think of this. You asked me this question: what can you bring to Columbia? I didn't have a good answer for that. In the past 22 years, not only have I've become a real designer, I became a husband, a grad student, a performer, a storyteller, a teacher, a consultant, and through it all, like the 9/11, the Iraq War, the Great Recession, we were here through all of that. And, I guess I finally have an answer to that question, and that's everything. Maurice, you gave me the ability to be anything, to do anything, so I could give you everything. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. You made a childhood dream come true. Thank you, Maurice. I love you.
Hi, Maurice. So I have a story. So you get to pick story 1 or story 2 without knowing what it is. I'll go with story 2. So my name is Zarina, and I'm the senior front-end developer here with the developers group. You see here, this table here is the developers group. So once upon a time, I did a little stint at the journalism school. I took some writing classes. You remember that? Okay. So there was this one course, and the assignment is for you to do something that you have never done before. So I have 2 things that I've never done before. Thing number 1 and thing number 2. So I was having lunch with a bunch of developers. I don't think any of them are here. And so we were like, okay, so Zarina, you need to do something that you've never done before. So I picked thing number 2. So, and I said to one of the developers, I said, I will do it only if you guys join me. And they were like, okay, we'll do it. So one day we were having lunch with Maurice in the room at the same table, and then Maurice noticed that we were all not there on a particular Wednesday. And actually, no, not there, but like we're taking time off, vacation, the whole developers group. And where are you guys going? And then we were like, oh, we're going skydiving. So, and Maurice stopped eating because he was like, but if the plane crash, we will have no developers here. And then, of course, we're all like developers. We optimize things. We do our research. So we gave him the stats of what are the statistics say about plane crash. The parachute may not open, but we have like a second parachute and this and that. Maybe one of us may get injured, but not all of us. So you still have your team back All of us, or maybe just 2 or 3. So anyway, he made us call him after we land. And so we did. We called and said, Maurice, all of us are fine. But just to show you, he's caring about not just about the developers group, that we're all alive at the time and in one piece, driving back to New York. So yes, thank you, Maurice, for letting us skydive, and we will call you again, even though if you're at the beach.
Okay, we're gonna let Teresa have the last word, and then of course we'll let Maurice speak. And unfortunately, we can only stay here until 6 p.m. But there is an after party at 30 Morningside, I believe. Yeah, and yeah, Stephanie planned it, so yeah.
It's between 113 and 114th on Morningside.
Okay, Teresa.
Now you said it all. I only have one thing to say, and it's that, there aren't words to say, except to tell you that you're a friend, and you'll always be a friend. And thank you.
That would be you guys, not us. We're sitting. I don't need a microphone.
They told me only 1 page per year of service. Well, that was an amazing sitting there, listening to everybody's comments. I can't believe how touched I was. They were funny, heartfelt, and I really appreciate everybody's words. I think hearing them, not just the words, but also in front of my family, and it was just fabulous. I do have a few words that I like to say, but before I do that, I want to really thank those who helped organize this event. Thank you, Catherine. Where Catherine moved? She moved over to here. Sarah, Stephanie, Sayaka, and the folks from the Provost's office, Soulaymane. Thank you so much for all your help, support, leadership. I don't know whether Merrill and Sandesh are here, but I also wanted to thank them for all their support. And for all those who were behind the scenes in making today possible. Before the 100 stories of the Decameron, Giovanni Boccaccio wrote in the preface, "It is my conviction that gratitude, of all virtues, is most highly to be commended." I am overflowing with gratitude today, and of course, with stories. This gathering, of course, is also about Columbia. I feel like I'm finally graduating, but without all the tents, the bleachers, and the AstroTurf. I have often told the story of how I, a kid from Astoria, Queens, found my way to Columbia. I agreed to chaperone a friend whose parents wouldn't let him come to Morningside Heights alone. New York in the 1970s was rough and tough. My only qualifications were that I knew how to navigate the transfer from the RR to the IRT local at Times Square, and that I could be surly when necessary. All 140 pounds of me, but I think you got a sense of that as well. I had taken the #1 train to the Armory at 168th Street for our high school indoor track races. Then the Armory was just a yellow oval painted, the track was just a yellow oval painted over a flat wooden floor, one of the worst splinter hazards known to mankind. But who could have guessed that that Armory will one day house a beautiful track and the center's satellite office. When my friend and I walked past the gates at 116th and onto campus, I was stunned by the vista from College Walk. There was Lowell Library and Alma Mater on one side, Southfield and Butler Library. It was very bright sun on the, cold, slanted sun from a cold winter day. I was 17 and impressionable. It was love at first sight. I was in disbelief that such a place existed in Manhattan, and I'm sure many of you were similarly floored when you stepped onto this campus. While my friend met with his counselor at the admissions office, I asked the women at the reception desk, "Is there time to apply? Is this a good school?" Well, you all know the answer to those questions, and yet we both got in, my friend John and I. I've been away from this campus for just 2 years, since the fall of 1975, when I started as a freshman. For historical perspective, the Vietnam War ended a few months earlier. After I graduated in 1979, I left New York for a job in Groton, Connecticut, returning 2 years later to start graduate school in the fall of 1981. A friend from my undergraduate days, Bill Catchins, recommended a campus job that offered tuition exemption. Of course I was interested. I started at the Columbia University Center for Computing Activities, CUCCA, on January 25th, 1982. My Columbia career is now in its 42nd year. It is a collage of partnerships, friendships, and teamwork, with so many individuals contributing to this amazing mosaic of memories. My gratitude is wide, broad, and overflowing. That career has been in 3 parts. 1, I was a user services consultant for CUCCA in the 1980s, and at the risk of omitting some, appreciations go to Mark T. Kennedy, Jeff Damons, Travis Winfrey, Tom Chow, B. Hamlet. 2, I was the manager of academic technologies at AcIS in the 90s, with appreciations to Vachi Kondachi, Walter Bourne, Alan Crosswell, Frank De Cruz, Bill Chen, Dave Millman, Rob Cartolano, and Edna Blank. And 3, starting the Center for New Media Teaching and Learning with Frank Moretti in 1999, and its evolution to the present CTL in 2015. A 3-act play, with Act 3 having 2 parts. Let me say a few words about the founding of the CCNMTL, probably the most significant event of my career. In late 1999, I was given an amazing opportunity to work on a proposal for a new unit. Those critical to the start of this venture were Lane Sloan, Carol Mandel, Jonathan Cole, Mike Crow, Rafe Casper, and Vachi, and of course, a $10 million gift from Lionel Pincus. This new unit was to feature a partnership with the Institute for Learning Technologies at Teachers College. It was then I met Frank Moretti for the first time. He was unlike anyone I knew. He was brash, outspoken, pugnacious, and a natural leader. He possessed an endless source of generosity and compassion. Oh yeah, he was also a marvelous teacher. I soon found out that his secret weapon was Teresa Gonzalez, someone who would become a dear colleague and loyal friend. I feel Frank's spirit today. His spirit is strong in this room, hovering over many of you. When Frank and I launched the CCNMTL, yes, I was in the capsule, but he was the Saturn booster rocket. So long live Frank Anthony Moretti. We set out to counter the prevailing wisdom that all students needed to learn was access to the new information superhighway. Remember that term? It was such a big... Instead, we focused, as someone already said, on the purposeful use of technology and new media in the classroom. Critical to our success was the trust of the faculty, Ian Bent, Nick Turo, Len Fine, Don Melnick, Mark Dickstein, Manny Marble, Peter Bauer, and Peter Ahn, and so many others who championed the work of the center in those early years and beyond. We leaned into a special collaboration with the dental school and Dean Formicola, enriching us with John Zimmerman, and Letty Moss-Solentine, and the rest of their faculty. I see Letty in the back. And what a fabulous work it has been. The Sonic Glossary in 1999 to 3 demos, to the recent 3 demos in 2023, bookending hundreds of other projects. I can hear the bells ringing for each and every one of those accomplishments. Frank and I were fortunate. We were an expansion team with a roster of first rounders. From those there at the beginning, Kristen Sosolsky, David Van Esselstein, Ryan Kelsey, David Mealy, Corey Brandt, and those who remain from those early days, Stephanie Ogden, Zarina Mustapha, Marc Raymond, and all the others in between. I am so honored to have been part of your world for a brief moment in time. To Dan Beebe, Ryan Kelsey, and John Bosowicz, whose steadfastness and leadership I counted on after Frank's illness, thank you. And Jim Neal for his constant support and encouragement. During and after the transition to the CTL, there are 3 special people who were more important to me than they'll ever know. For their trust, loyalty, and humanity, Michelle Hall, Stephanie Ogden, and Susan Dreher. I will always carry the essence of those years and the kinship we had. In the most recent years, CTL has been fortunate to have Catherine Ross leading the way. She has been a force of will, turning the CTL into a caring, extensible, and essential unit of the university. We are wiser for your leadership. I've been especially fond of the rich connections you fostered among your leadership team with Amanda Irvin, Mark Phillipson, and Michelle before her departure. I left those meetings emboldened by our camaraderie. Those were the days, my friends. I want to acknowledge my teachers over the years, formal and informal, none more influential than Mr. James Barris, my 5th grade teacher, and today a beloved Buddhist teacher. He figured out that behind my inability to speak English was someone to champion. I acknowledge my parents, Alvaro and Margarita, whose influence I recognize every day. Their insistence on diligence, wholesomeness, and sincerity. Equally important has been my extended family, the 3 Matiz families, all immigrants from Colombia, Bogota, Colombia, who settled in Astoria. My parents, my aunts and uncles have been the wellspring of our customs and traditions. They nurtured outside aspirations for their 10 children. Representing that extended clan is my cousin, Zarina Mustapha. She's a pediatrician at CUMC. Also present are my greatest source of pride, my 2 kids, my son and daughter, Angelica and Julian. Which leads me to thank the one person who has been there for me every single day for the last 36 years. I shouldn't have looked over. The source of my strength, my confidant and booster, my wife and love, Laura Matiz. Thank you, honey. So what am I doing next? This is a question I've gotten often. I start to respond, but I find it difficult to entangle a simple answer. But here it goes. For those of you who know me outside of work, you'll know that for certain that writing will be ascendant. Also, I have been touched by books on immigration and poverty by Valeria Luiselli and Matthew Desmond, respectively. These monumental issues have impenetrable solutions, but they interest me, and putting my shoulder to the wheel is a possibility, perhaps a way to reinvent myself. These last few weeks, everything has been in sharper focus. The light has been perfect for the bas relief of situations. I was keenly aware that this one or that one was the last monthly meeting or the last weekly meeting I would attend, that it was my last chance to influence direction, that it was my last chance to say something that should have been said many times before, to say good work. Thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being a good colleague, and so on. These feelings have been immense, swelling to a loud sigh or grunt of delight from the semi-privacy of my office, hoping I didn't disturb Sayaka on the other side of the partition. And I don't know whether she's made it here, but by the way, after 3 years of being my neighbor and a willing ear for my stories, I'm going to miss you, Sayaka, your kindness and graciousness. I'd like to end by thanking all of you here, the CCNMTLers, mostly in this area, the CTL, and some in that area, the CTL current and former staff, my colleagues from CUCCA and AcIS and CUIT, the libraries, and other Columbia offices. My college and ultimate buddies are here. The faculty and my family, thank you for seeing me close out my career. In a Walt Whitman poem about the people you encounter, the last line of that poem is an appropriate vow to my current and past colleagues. I am to see to it that I do not lose you. The Spanish word for retirement is jubilación. Isn't it more festive? Yes, and so much more celebratory of the privilege and honor has been to have lived, worked, and laughed with so many of you. It has been my joy. Time to have a few beers now.